Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin may be the best race performers this year after claiming a 4th podium in 5 Grand Prix this season. Alonso kept the pace with Red Bull's Sergio Perez early in the race, held off compatriot and Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz in the first stint, made the moves when it mattered after his pit stop to get back into position, and then stretched his lead over the chasing pack. It's always entertaining to watch Alonso drive the wheels off failing machinery and voice his anger with his team over team radio, but it's even more fun to see Alonso back in a competitive car and thriving. After claiming his 4th podium, Alonso admitted that his team's outlook on success is changing. He is aware, however, that finishing any higher would necessitate severe Red Bull misfortune. "I think at the beginning of the year a podium was amazing. Now after 4 podiums we obviously want more, and at least a 2nd place," Alonso said. "But the 2 Red Bulls are always unbreakable, and they are always super fast. But as I said, maybe Monaco, maybe Barcelona, we have a possibility." Alonso finished 21 seconds behind 2nd place Perez and 7 seconds ahead of Mercedes' George Russell, as both Mercedes and Ferrari struggled with race pace. On his way to 3rd, the 2-time world champion even stopped to compliment teammate Lance Stroll on a nice overtake he saw on the big screens around the Miami International Autodrome. Alonso admitted that he expected a more intense battle this weekend, but as Ferrari and Mercedes failed to replicate their decent improvements in Baku and Melbourne respectively, it was more of a Sunday drive than a Grand Prix for the Spaniard. "A little bit of a lonely race today, and nothing really to do in front of us with the Red Bulls and behind us. Maybe we did expect a bit stronger opposition, but the Ferraris were a bit worse than expected today. So yeah, it's never easy, but it was a lonely race. We take the podium and go into the triple header of Imola, Monaco and Barcelona, at which hopefully we can keep on going." Alonso has now scored 15 points in every 2023 race weekend, missing the podium in Baku but adding to his tally in the first sprint race of the season. The Spaniard heads into the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in 2 weeks with a 19-point lead over Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton in the battle for 3rd, behind the elusive Red Bulls. But if there was any certainty that the Aston Martin superstar would win a race or 2 this season, Max Verstappen's relentless rise through the field dispelled that notion. Instead, Alonso hopes that the midfield can do a better job of making Verstappen work harder the next time he faces a similar situation. "At the moment, it is hard to keep them behind," Alonso told Sky Sports, "and I was hoping that he had like a DRS train of cars in front of him, but he was just making moves one after the other, and the guys in front, they were not in the DRS either. So it was a little bit too easy for him. Hopefully next time we can try, all of us, to make things more difficult." Nevertheless, it's difficult not to root for Aston Martin this season, who doesn't enjoy a good underdog story. Along with their speed, which has seen them compete closely with Mercedes and Ferrari behind the dominant Red Bulls, the Aston Martin drivers' camaraderie has provided an additional boost and fairy tale feel. "We had this goal in the team which we spoke about," Alonso revealed. "I remember the day before the launch of the car in February in the factory. What was the goal of the team with Mike Crack and Martin Whitmarsh? I think we all agree that we need to play this kind of game. You know, if you want to be the opposition, we are fighting against very big teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, and our strength is to score points with both cars." Alonso, the oldest driver on the grid, has been extremely supportive of Stroll, describing the 24-year-old as a hero after finishing 6th in the season opening race in Bahrain, despite suffering severe injuries in a pre-season cycling accident. The good vibes between the pair have continued since then, with Stroll assuring the team over the radio in the early stages of last weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix that he wouldn't try to attack Alonso, who was directly in front of him on track and attempting to save his tyres for later in the race. Later in the race, Alonso was heard sending technical advice to his younger teammate, before insisting after the race that Stroll is the team's future. Explaining why he is so willing to try and help Stroll, Alonso drew a comparison to his relationship with Esteban Ocon, who he clashed with on multiple occasions as they spent the past 2 seasons together at Alpine. "Yeah, I tried to help Lance, but we cannot forget that also he's very smart," Alonso said. "And he's a driver that I think as a teammate, as we saw in Baku, we spoke about maybe saving tyres. We didn't know exactly in a sprint format how long the tyres will last. We were saving tyres and he said, I will not attack Fernando. Last year, I had like maybe the opposite. Always, you know, my teammate, like the first target was me. So that was obviously not beneficial for the team. So I think Lance is playing also a part in this relationship." Alonso has since repeated the assertion that he made in Baku, that he thinks that Stroll will lead the team for the next 10 or 15 years, and that he wants to help Lance as much as he can while he's still driving. Despite out-qualifying and finishing ahead of Stroll in all of their races as teammates, Alonso believes the Canadian has what it takes to lead the team in the future. "Right now, maybe I'm more prepared to fight for the championship because I've been in this position and fighting with top cars and at the front. But as I said, you know, I will drive for a few more years, not many, and I think Lance chance we'll drive for many more. If I can help, I will be happy. But not everybody is focused on the long term on the F1 grid, and the driver that would benefit the most from an immediate pick-me-up would probably be Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton. However, Miami did have some positives for the Brit, even if the end result was nothing to write home about. The 7-time world champion came home in 6th place in Florida, having had a much more enjoyable day on Sunday than on Saturday after being knocked out in Q2. Over a race distance, the W14 proved to be a much more competitive beast, with Hamilton gradually but steadily carving his way upward as the race progressed, particularly as the fuel load decreased and he switched to the medium compound tyre. Hamilton also played the team game, allowing George Russell to pass him in the middle of the race as Russell chased higher points after starting in 6th on the grid. Hamilton said after the race that he felt the car came to life under him as the laps ticked by. "I don't really know about the strategy. I don't know if that was optimum or whether it could have been worse," he said. "It was definitely difficult to start just being in a DRS train with a bunch of cars, and trying to get past the Williams of Alex Albon, which is so quick on the straight, was not easy. But eventually I was able to start making headway, and then once I'd done the stop and I got back out on the medium is when I was able to really start to push. The car came a bit alive midway through the race, and I think to get from 13th to 6th, I'm pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, we started so far behind, but I enjoyed the race. I had a lot of fun just making my way through. It's nice to be able to have a little battle with people and good points for the team. So a big thank you to the team again this weekend for just keeping their head down and continuing to push even though we aren't where we want to be. There's still great morale within the team. Despite a bleak forecast for the race, Russell also improved from his P6 grid start to finish 4th. But not everything went as planned for Mercedes. The Brackley team had started the weekend on a high note in Friday practice, but Mercedes team principal Wolff was unable to explain the weekend's performance peaks and troughs. That's the story of the car, that we have very good sessions like on Friday, then we had very difficult qualifying, and then on Sunday we have solid pace, a bemused Wolff told media. But solid pace is not where we want to be, and we need to understand why we are lacking that speed for a lap. So there is nothing to be relieved of by having a more decent Sunday, because you've got to start at the front, and then you've got to be able to manage the Red Bulls and the other teams, and that's not the case yet. The Mercedes boss did, however, praise Hamilton's recovery drive, which saw the Briton overtake one of the rival Ferraris in the closing stages of the race. And with Aston Martin having only one driver in the points and Ferrari struggling for pace, Mercedes remarkably outscored their nearest competitors in the Constructors' Championship. Meanwhile, Mercedes trackside engineer director Andrew Chauvelin gave a more positive assessment of their recovery, but promised a thorough investigation into the reasons for their poor qualifying performance. Nonetheless, with some major upgrades set to arrive at Imola in 2 weeks, we'll be watching to see how the new W14 compares to the competition. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and ring that bell to receive notifications when we upload new content. Make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Is Mercedes making any progress? Will their Imola B-spec give them what they need to mount a successful recovery? What about Aston Martin? Is Alonso right that the team's future is with Lance Stroll? See you next time.